Remember, there's only room for one sovereign at a time, not two. So you can't be the same as the sovereign.
Feeling that fear every single day. And then I suppose they think to themselves, well, maybe that there is a way out.
At 76, King Charles has been left in tears after a shocking family confrontation that no one saw coming. In a tense private exchange, both Prince William and Princess Anne reportedly demanded that he cut all ties with Camilla's family, an ultimatum that has shaken the monarchy to its core. The emotional fallout from this demand is sending shockwaves through the palace, raising questions about loyalty, power, and the future of the crown itself. What could have sparked such a drastic move? The truth is startling. Tears in the palace. At 76, King Charles III is said to have broken down in private, overwhelmed with tears after a deeply unsettling confrontation with two of the people closest to him: his son, Prince William, and his sister, Princess Anne. What shook him so deeply was not just their words, but the weight of their demand, one that could redraw the boundaries of royal life forever. Both William and Anne reportedly stood firm, presenting the king with a shocking ultimatum: to completely cut ties with Queen Camilla's family. Their request was not vague or symbolic. It was precise and absolute. They wanted Camilla's relatives excluded from every layer of royal involvement, financially, socially, and even in the background roles they had quietly begun to occupy within palace circles. What had once started as whispered tension behind gilded palace doors has now escalated into what insiders are calling nothing less than a royal reset. This phrase, simple yet dramatic, suggests that what is unfolding is far bigger than a family disagreement. It points to a potential reshaping of the monarchy itself, its traditions, its power structures, and the identity it projects to the nation and the world. For King Charles, the demand is particularly heartbreaking. Throughout his decades as heir apparent, he long struggled with the public's perception of his private life. His marriage to Diana, the painful divorce, and his enduring love for Camilla all shaped how the world saw him. After years of criticism and scandal, finally seeing Camilla crowned as queen consort beside him during his coronation was, to Charles, both a personal victory and a sign of acceptance. Yet now, the very family he relies on to secure the monarchy's future is challenging that chapter of his life in the most dramatic way. Prince William, the heir to the throne, is said to be especially resolute. To him, the monarchy must be leaner, more modern, and free of what he sees as unnecessary complications. Camilla's family, with their growing presence, reportedly represents a risk, one that could blur the lines between the crown's duties and personal indulgence. Princess Anne, known for her no-nonsense approach and unshakable loyalty to duty, has reportedly sided with William. Her alignment with him makes the demand harder for Charles to dismiss, for Anne's reputation as the most hard-working royal gives her opinions added weight. The tension has become a battle not only over family loyalty, but also over the monarchy's long-term survival. If Charles refuses, he risks alienating his son and sister, creating fractures that may weaken the institution from within. If he agrees, he risks betraying the woman who has stood beside him for decades and reshaping his legacy in a way he never intended. What happens next could alter the monarchy for generations. Is this the beginning of a bold new era? One that resets the balance of tradition and modernity, or the spark of a deeper family rift that may never truly heal? The world watches, waiting to see which path King Charles will choose. What exactly did William and Anne say? Why did it affect the king so much? How weighty were the words? Let's delve into the depth of the words that brought the king to tears. The statement that shook the crown. The story began not with fanfare or a dramatic outburst, but with a simple, carefully worded message from Buckingham Palace. At first glance, it appeared cold, almost businesslike, a routine update that spoke of a supposed restructuring of royal trusts. The announcement emphasized stability, security, and the monarchy's future, framed in the kind of cautious, official language that usually slips past public interest. But for those who follow the royal family closely, it carried a thunderous undercurrent. Hidden within the lines of bureaucratic politeness was something extraordinary, something no keen observer could ignore. Two names in particular were missing, not overlooked, not lightly brushed aside, but deliberately absent: Laura Lopes and Tom Parker Bowles, the children of Queen Camilla from her first marriage. For years, their presence lingered quietly in the background of royal life, acknowledged in photographs, family gatherings, and occasional mentions in press coverage. Yet, in this new restructuring, their existence seemed to have been erased altogether. There was no courtesy reference, no polite acknowledgement, not even the faintest nod to their place as Camilla's bloodline. The omission was so stark, it felt like a statement in itself. It was not the kind of mistake that slips through the hands of royal advisors. This was a decision, carefully weighed and carried out with surgical precision. To many, the act seemed almost brutal. It was as if the palace had drawn a firm line between the Windsor dynasty and Camilla's personal family, effectively declaring that Laura and Tom were outsiders who couldn't be tied, at least officially, to the future of the crown. The quiet removal struck like a bolt of lightning, reverberating through Britain and across the Commonwealth. Royal watchers, long attuned to reading between the lines, immediately understood the magnitude. This wasn't mere housekeeping. It was a recalibration of legacy and loyalty. It suggested that the monarchy, in its relentless pursuit of survival and stability, was willing to cut even the most delicate of ties. For Camilla, who had fought years of scrutiny and earned her place beside King Charles, the exclusion of her children was both telling and symbolic. She might sit as queen consort, but her offspring, it seemed, had no seat at the table of royal destiny. The silence surrounding the decision only deepened the intrigue. Was this Charles's hand, guided by tradition and a desire to protect the purity of the Windsor line? Or was it the influence of Prince William and other senior royals, determined to keep the focus tightly on heirs born of royal blood? Whatever the truth, the move sent shockwaves through the kingdom. To some, it was a cold reminder that monarchy is less about family warmth and more about preserving an institution built on continuity and image. To others, it was a bold act of discipline, stripping away any suggestion of blurred lines or divided loyalty. What began as a sterile announcement had, in reality, opened a new chapter of palace drama. How did the media handle when the news flew? How did the public react? Let's find out. Public outcry and media frenzy. Within just a few hours of the news breaking, the entire media landscape exploded with noise. Tabloids churned out sensational headlines. Television anchors filled their panels with royal experts, and social media lit up with endless speculation. The debate quickly grew fierce. Was this bold move by William and Princess Anne a long overdue correction of unchecked royal indulgence? Or was it something darker, a sharp and calculated act of vengeance driven by the shadows of Diana's tragic past and the bitterness that had never truly healed? Headlines screamed in all directions, some celebratory, others accusatory. Royal reset, bloodline restored, declared one paper in oversized print, as though history itself had just been rewritten. Another headline cut straight to the scandal. Camilla's family cut off, sparking questions about whether the move was truly about preserving tradition or simply about erasing ties that many had always considered uncomfortable. As the frenzy grew, polls started rolling in, and the numbers were startling. An overwhelming majority of the public sided with William and Anne, as though the nation had been waiting for this very moment. For years, many had whispered and sometimes outright stated that Camilla's children, though not of royal blood, had enjoyed privileges and proximity that seemed unearned. They had walked in royal circles, attended exclusive events, and basked in an aura that critics argued belonged only to those with legitimate birthright. Now, with one decisive stroke, the perception was that the monarchy was tightening its circle, reclaiming its ancient boundaries. Supporters hailed it as necessary housekeeping. To them, this was the crown finally standing firm, protecting its image and ensuring that only true heirs carried its weight. One viral comment summed up the nation's mood perfectly. "This is the monarchy cleaning house." Finally, the phrase spread across platforms, repeated in tweets, videos, and editorials, becoming almost a rallying cry. But beneath the cheering, another narrative lurked, one that questioned the motives behind the decision. Was it really about protecting tradition, or was it revenge? Subtle but sharp, aimed at Camilla, the woman forever tied to Diana's heartbreak. Old wounds resurfaced in the public mind. The broken marriage, the painful scandals, the sense of betrayal that had once rocked the crown. To many, the move wasn't just administrative, it was symbolic. It was William and Anne drawing a line in the sand, reminding the world that Diana's memory still shaped the monarchy's future. The storm showed no signs of calming. Every talk show, every headline, every trending hashtag kept pulling the story in new directions. Yet one thing was clear. The decision had cracked open the heart of royal drama, reigniting passions, and forcing the world to ask what loyalty, blood, and legacy truly mean inside the House of Windsor. Why did William champion the campaign against Camilla? What does he stand to gain from it? Why would Princess Anne join hands with him? Let's dig further into the details. William and Anne unite against Camilla's legacy. Prince William has always carried the memory of his late mother, Princess Diana, like a sacred flame. Every public appearance, every word spoken about her, reminds him of the deep bond they once shared and the pain of her absence. This loyalty to Diana's legacy has shaped how he views his father's choices, especially when it comes to Camilla and her children. For William, the crown is not something that should be stretched or reshaped to accommodate personal desires. To him, monarchy is about lineage, sacrifice, and duty. It is a sacred inheritance passed down through centuries, rooted in blood, not an arrangement where step-relatives are allowed to drift quietly into royal influence. The thought of Camilla's children gradually becoming intertwined with royal privileges unsettled him deeply. In William's mind, this was not just a family matter. It was about protecting what the monarchy stood for. Yet William was not alone in his concerns. Princess Anne, often regarded as the iron backbone of the monarchy, soon found herself sharing the same unease. Anne has always been known for her unwavering loyalty to the crown and her no-nonsense approach to duty. Unlike others in the royal family who sometimes bent under pressure, Anne remained steady, dedicated, and unshakably firm in her belief that the monarchy must never be diluted by sentiment or personal attachments. She watched as her brother, King Charles, allowed affection and emotion to cloud decisions that, in her eyes, required cold, calculated judgment. Anne's resolve eventually led her to a private confrontation with Charles. In a candid moment, she warned him directly, "History will not forgive you if you weaken the crown for sentiment." These words, sharp and uncompromising, struck at the heart of the matter. For Anne, the monarchy was bigger than any individual. It was an institution built on centuries of tradition and sacrifice, and it was her duty to protect it from being reshaped by personal indulgence. With William and Anne standing together, the resistance against Camilla's family influence grew stronger. The alliance between the future king and the monarchy's most steadfast defender was more than just family solidarity. It became a powerful statement. They carefully framed their objections not as petty family disagreements or jealous disputes, but as a broader fight to safeguard the crown itself. By shifting the conversation in this way, they made it clear that this was no ordinary family drama. It was about protecting the very essence of monarchy. Together, William and Anne became a formidable force embodying duty and tradition. Their stance sent ripples through the palace walls, signaling to Charles that while love and sentiment might shape his private life, the crown could never afford to bend under their weight. Will Camilla be able to stand the duo of William and Anne? What options are available for her to explore? Let's find out what Camilla did after the information got to her. Camilla's plea and the leaked betrayal. Behind the grand palace walls, where secrets often hid behind polished smiles and golden curtains, Camilla's calm strength began to crumble into fear and desperation. She sat across from Charles, her voice shaking as she tried to defend what she held most dear: her children. With eyes heavy with worry, she pleaded, reminding him again and again that her children had never hungered for titles, wealth, or political power. "They only want a quiet life," she whispered, almost begging. "This decision will tear us apart if you allow it." Her words floated in the cold air of the royal chamber, a wife's fragile attempt to protect her family from forces larger than herself. But in the heart of the monarchy, whispers can turn into storms. And soon enough, a devastating leak slipped through the cracks. Documents that changed everything. Hidden within dull legal files was something explosive. Proof that Laura Lopes, Camilla's daughter, had been quietly positioned for a future role as trustee in the management of crown property. To the public eye, it might have looked like an ordinary administrative choice. But within the royal circle, it was undeniable evidence of long-term planning. A deliberate attempt to anchor Camilla's family into the very roots of the monarchy. For William and Anne, this was not a misunderstanding. It was betrayal carved in ink and paper. They saw it as confirmation of their deepest suspicions, that Camilla's family was not content with being on the sidelines, that they were slowly, carefully securing a place inside the sacred machinery of the crown. The discovery lit a fire in William's chest and hardened Anne's resolve. The siblings, bound not only by blood but also by duty to the throne, felt they had been patient long enough. They had endured whispers, ignored rumors, and swallowed the discomfort of compromise. But now, faced with undeniable proof, their patience ended. They sought Charles with words, sharp and final. Their demand rang out like a royal decree, leaving no room for softness or delay. No more waiting. No more bargaining. This ends now. In that single moment, the weight of family loyalty clashed against the ancient guardianship of the crown. A line had been drawn, and Charles, caught between the woman he loved and the children he had raised to defend the monarchy, stood in the middle of a storm that could break everything apart. Camilla's family who are affected are no other than her children and grandchildren. Who are they? Let's talk briefly about Camilla's only children, Tom and Laura, and their upbringing. Tom and Laura Parker Bowles. Queen Camilla, before becoming the consort of King Charles III, lived a very different life as the wife of Andrew Parker Bowles. From that marriage came her two children, Tom, born in 1974, and Laura, born in 1978. Their story weaves together themes of tradition, religion, royal connections, and personal independence, all within the unique shadow of the British monarchy. Tom Parker Bowles, the elder child, holds a special place in royal history. Not only is he the son of Camilla, but he was also chosen as a godson of King Charles himself. This detail, seemingly small, highlights the long and complex ties between Camilla and Charles that predated their eventual marriage. Tom's upbringing reflected his father Andrew's strong Catholic roots. He was taught the values of the faith and raised under the influence of his grandmother, Anne Parker Bowles, who was deeply devoted to Catholic tradition. Yet in his own life, Tom eventually charted a slightly different course. Unlike his father, who attended the Catholic Ampleforth College, Tom was educated at Eton, the famed school of Britain's elite. Later, when he married, he did so outside the Catholic Church, choosing a different spiritual path while maintaining respect for his upbringing. Tom also inherited a noble connection. He remains in line to the earldom of Macclesfield, a quiet reminder of his aristocratic bloodline. Laura Parker Bowles, born 4 years after her brother, also spent her early years shaped by Catholic influence. She attended a Catholic girls' school where her education emphasized faith, character, and discipline. However, like her brother, Laura's adult life reflected her own choices. When she married, it was in an Anglican church, connecting her more closely with her mother's religious background than her father's. This balance, Catholic schooling with Anglican practices, symbolizes the dual influences that defined her childhood: the Catholicism of her father and grandmother, and the Anglican tradition of her mother, Camilla. Throughout these years, Camilla herself never converted to Catholicism. While her children were raised in Andrew's faith, she remained firmly Anglican, loyal to her own spiritual heritage. This quiet decision shaped the family's dynamic, as their household embodied two traditions under one roof. The Parker Bowles family eventually fractured. After 21 years of marriage, Andrew and Camilla filed for divorce in December 1994, citing years of separation. The timing could not have been more difficult. Just months earlier, in July of that same year, Camilla's mother, Rosalind, had died after battling osteoporosis. The loss was devastating for her, and her father later described it as one of the darkest periods of her life. The divorce proceedings were heard in London's High Court in January 1995, and by March 3rd of that year, the marriage was formally dissolved. Andrew soon remarried in 1996 to Rosemary Pittman, who remained his wife until her death in 2010. For Tom and Laura, these early experiences shaped their outlooks and decisions as adults. They grew up in the delicate space between aristocracy and royalty, between Catholic and Anglican traditions, and between public expectation and private individuality. Today, their story reflects not only their own journeys, but also the complex family tapestry of Queen Camilla herself. For William and Anne to have moved to cut all ties with Camilla's family, many questions beg for answers. Did Camilla's children have any established relationship with King Charles? Let's dive into the silent bond between them. Tom Parker Bowles' hidden bond with King Charles. When Tom Parker Bowles recently opened up about his family, he spoke with unusual warmth about his stepfather, King Charles III. For many years, the bond between the two men has been hidden behind layers of royal history, public speculation, and endless media chatter. Yet, in his candid remarks, Tom lifted the curtain just a little, allowing the public to glimpse the respect and affection that underpin their relationship. Tom, who has long built a reputation for himself as a food writer and critic, is currently promoting his latest work, Cooking and the Crown. The book takes readers on a fascinating journey through the kitchens of royalty, tracing recipes that stretch all the way back to the Victorian period and following them through time until today. It is, in many ways, a culinary history lesson told through the tastes and traditions of the monarchy. But Tom made it clear that the project might never have been realized without the steady hand of royal encouragement. He acknowledged openly that the palace, and especially King Charles, played an essential role in shaping and guiding the book. In Tom's words, "It wouldn't have happened without the palace and the king." That single line reveals more than simple gratitude. It is an admission that the project was strengthened, legitimized, and perhaps even brought to life by the trust and support of the monarch himself. But Tom's admiration did not stop at acknowledging this assistance. What followed was a moving portrait of King Charles that seemed to rise above the formality of monarchy. Tom spoke not as an outsider peering into royal life, but as someone who has been privileged to witness the king up close and to understand the person behind the crown. In describing his stepfather, Tom used words that were both affectionate and deeply respectful. He called him the kindest, most knowledgeable, lovely man, a description that carries warmth, humility, and sincerity. These words sketch an image of Charles not simply as the reigning king, but as a thoughtful and approachable human being, one who listens, shares, and teaches without pretension. Tom revealed that he and King Charles shared a surprising bond over food. Their conversations about cuisine, traditions, and cooking were more than small talk. They were moments of genuine insight for Tom, a seasoned food writer. He compared asking Charles a food question to consulting an academic, emphasizing the king's depth of knowledge. This account confirms that Charles's passion for heritage, tradition, and sustainability naturally extends into culinary culture. For the king, food is not just an intellectual interest, but a heartfelt pursuit, reflecting both his curiosity and his deep respect for cultural and environmental values. What makes this revelation so compelling is the way it humanizes a man who is often seen only through the stiff lens of royalty. In Tom's words, we see not the distant figure of a monarch locked away in grandeur, but a man eager to share knowledge, passionate about tradition, and generous with encouragement. For Tom, those exchanges about food are not just conversations, they are treasured moments of connection, proof that his stepfather's role in his life is far more meaningful than public speculation suggests. Beneath the pomp of the crown and the weight of history lies a relationship built on respect, admiration, and shared passions. And in speaking openly about it, Tom Parker Bowles has given the world a rare glimpse into the softer, more personal side of King Charles III. Were William and Anne able to get their demands met? What decision did the king make after all? Let's find out what the final verdict was. The final decree and its fallout. Burdened by the weight of duty and the whispers of tradition, King Charles finally made a decision that would shake the monarchy to its very core. With trembling hands but a resolute heart, he issued a decree unlike any before it. Camilla's family was to be permanently excluded from every royal trust, asset, and corridor of influence. It was not just a statement, it was a line carved deeply into history, one that echoed the monarchy's intent to safeguard its bloodline from all questions of dilution or doubt. The declaration made it unmistakably clear the royal family's purity and survival would never again be compromised by outsiders. For Camilla, the blow was unbearable. Once the unwavering companion who had stood beside Charles through storms of scandal and whispers of disapproval, she now found herself isolated in the silence of rejection. In public, her usual composure deserted her. Behind palace walls, she retreated into a private world, withdrawing from the spotlight that had once seemed inseparable from her identity. Her children, who had occasionally hovered on the edge of royal recognition, vanished entirely from the royal stage, their names scrubbed from any role in the monarchy's unfolding story. In stark contrast, Prince William and Princess Anne flourished in the wake of this decree. Both hailed as the true guardians of tradition, they were celebrated by a public eager to see the royal family realign itself with Diana's enduring legacy. William's image as the heir who would restore honor, and Anne's as the steadfast daughter committed to service, grew brighter with every headline. Their reputations soared as symbols of a crown that refused to compromise its identity, even in the face of painful personal sacrifice. Historians would later look back on this moment as the great turning point. To them, it marked the precise point when the monarchy placed survival above sentiment and preservation above affection. The choice was not an easy one. Charles himself was left heartbroken. His love for Camilla weighed against the unrelenting demands of kingship. For him, it was the most personal of losses. For Camilla, it was devastation beyond repair, a chapter of her life abruptly sealed shut. But for William and Anne, the outcome was nothing short of a triumph. Their stance had reshaped the crown's future, ensuring that the monarchy would not falter under the strain of divided loyalties. The decree was more than a decision. It was a declaration that the crown's survival would always come first, even at the cost of love, trust, and human connection. And so, history recorded it not just as a royal order, but as the moment the monarchy itself was reborn. So, what do you think William and Anne's demand? How will Camilla cope with the verdict? We would love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. Don't forget to like and subscribe.